So you should have a precinct here.
I think many people have copies, and if anyone would want copies, Alicia still has it. So, the regular general meeting of the Sanford Historical Society was held on Thursday, May the 27th, 1999 at the Indian Mound Yacht Club. President Grace Marie Stein-Sanford called the meeting to order at 5:10 p.m. Following welcoming remarks, the President asked for corrections to the minutes of the March 25th, 1999 general meeting. They were approved as presented. Treasurer Joe Hunt reported that as of April the 30th, 1999, the Society balance in cash and bank accounts is $104,120.50. His report was approved. President Stein-Sanford gave a special welcome to the guests. Approximately 63 members and guests were present. New members were recognized. Special thanks were given as follows. Joe Hunt for securing the meeting site. Archie and Debbie Smith for providing the meeting site at no cost. Millard Hunt and his House Committee for setting up the room. Ron Reisner for contacting the guest speaker, Dr. Barbara Purdy. Ron Reisner, Zafria Marsh, and Joe Hunt for refreshments. Betty Skates for serving at the greeters table. Alicia Clark and Julie Jeffries for assisting with arrangements. President Stein-Sanford updated the membership on actions of the Executive Committee and related society information. The report included the following: the purchase of a computer for the Sanford Historical Society, the cancellation of the Gillespie Museum to Land field trip scheduled for June the 10th. The Gillespie Museum is closed for renovation. The success of the Maitland field trip and the need to reschedule a visit to the Holocaust Museum. The Calendar 2000 Committee is nearing the completion of picture selection and timeline. Bids for printing are being solicited. The Calendar Committee next meets June the 3rd. Chip Chapman and the Membership Committee met on May the 20th and decided that the major effort to gain new members will be made during the last quarter of this year. Members have been encouraged to send flyers to friends and acquaintances. The membership handbook has been sent to society members. Corrections will be included in the July newsletter. Betty Skates and Alicia Clark were commended for their work on this publication. The historic memorial bricks are installed on the sidewalk in front of the Sanford Museum, thanks to the efforts of museum staff Michelle Duria and Julie Jeffries. Joe Hunt has agreed to be in charge of this ongoing project. A brochure on the Heritage Brick Project is available. The Sanford Historic Trust invites Sanford Historical Society members to the June 11th reception to introduce the Sanford Residential Historic District Walking Driving Tour Book. The Historical Society donated $1,000 to this project for the photographs. Longtime society member Walter H. Anderson died May the 21st. The cattle industry will be Ed and Imogene Yarborough's topic for the July 22nd meeting at the Sanford Museum. The meeting was then turned over to guest speaker Dr. Barbara Purdy, noted archaeologist. Through slides, Dr. Purdy shared her experiences while excavating our invisible heritage along the north shore of Lake Monroe from 1987 to 1993. The excavations extended out into the lake. Dr. Purdy and 75 volunteers found a record number of artifacts, some dating back 600 years. Items found include the shark's teeth, beaver jaws, bone and shell points, squash and gourd seeds. The full array of garbage, and that's quoting Dr. Kirby, indicated the Timucuans were in contact with others far away. Questions follows the illustrated lecture. At the conclusion, President Sanford thanked Dr. Purdy. The meeting adjourned at 6:40 p.m. Dr. Purdy remained to talk informally with members and autograph. Respectfully submitted, Serena Park Station.
Have any additions or corrections?
Correction.
No.
On the amount we gave for the walking, driving tour booklet, it was $1,500. And we had enough vigorous discussion about that.
Yes, I asked for that to be researched. I never got an answer, so I couldn't find out. 1,500, okay.
Correction will be made.
If it's worth it.
Wasn't it 6,000, not 600? I don't know.
It's 6,000. It was 6,000.
You can get as old as I am.
It's 6,000.
600 doesn't sound very old.
Yeah, it's 6,000. Also,
Yeah, I see.
the Gillespie Museum was closed for the summer, not for renovation. Any other additions or corrections? Stand approved is corrected. Joe, do you have the treasurer's report?
Yes. As of June 30th, the bank balance for all the accounts, both the operating and the trust accounts, is $95,916.22. In terms of how that relates to our budget for the year, at the end of June, we were $2,430 under budget. So we've been doing pretty well. Trying to think if there's anything else of interest, but I think that just about gets it.
And how much of that is in the operating account?
The operating account has $16,829.71.
The rest of that, of course, you realize is the Caraway
Right.
request that we. Any other questions on the treasurer?
Full reports available for anyone that wants to. There are about 10 or 12 copies around, so if you have interest, it's there.
See, we have some new members and guests tonight. I see Mrs. Ford, who is the mother of Imogene Yarborough, as a guest. Let's see, who are new members? There's a new member over here, and I've forgotten your name already. David Hoover, he just joined last week. Have any other new members? Yeah. That's her. Okay.
Sign your checks, Bruce.
I know that. I know.
You'll be short next month.
She's the publisher of the Sanford Herald. Yes, Seminole Herald. Well,
We still answer
it's
the
in
same.
grain.
That's fine.
And my friend Lillian and Bob Key. Lillian is a Sanford native, or Seminole County native anyway.
Thank you for being invited.
Oh, good. Anytime. Any others? Okay, it was mentioned in the minutes about the computer purchase, and the computer is here. Just brought in this past week. Now, this is our computer for the society, not for the museum, for us to put our records on. Joe's already put the treasurer's records on here, so we're going to be up and running pretty soon. You notice, as mentioned before, we have several new members since May that were listed in the newsletter, which we are very pleased to have. I did give forms to all my classmates at our recent class reunion. I think I may have a few coming in. I know I've sold 2 bricks, so it's been pretty good here. Calendar committee. We will have a meeting on Wednesday, next Wednesday, July 29th, here at the museum at 3:30. So that's Joe, Chip, Betty, and Ron. 2 of you. I'll contact the rest of them. We will have an executive board meeting soon. We had to canceled the last one because I was sick, so we do need one, so I will contact you probably the 1st of August. We do continue to have a reciprocal membership agreement with the Chamber of Commerce, which is very good because this saves us about $70. Millard was able to get this for us last year, and you checked and it's still in force, so that's good. We get all their information and everything, and I'll put whatever is pertinent in the newsletter for you. The Sanford Heritage Festival, which is sponsored by the Chamber, will be in November, and perhaps we can work out an agreement for a table or something there at a small cost to sell some of our calendars. We'll work on that. We, of course, are saddened in loss of 2 of our members. Mentioned in the last meeting was Walter Anderson, who is sister of Doris Gormley and a couple of others of our members. Doris is here tonight. Also Audrey Biggers, who is was the wife of Paul Biggers. Paul is here tonight. We're really glad to have you, and our sympathies go with you. Thank you for helping us tonight. We have sent donations to the Cancer Society in memory of Audrey, and to the Sarasota Kiwanis Club in memory of Walter Anderson. Now this arrived after the newsletter went out, and I thought some of you might be interested. The Florida Black History Photographic Exhibit will be in DeLand July 17th through September 11th. And it will be in 3 separate DeLand sites: DeLand Public Library, the West Volusia Historical Society, and African American Museum of the Arts. This exhibition presents a selection of visual images reflecting the quality of life and contemporary events of Florida Black history, from the 1513 arrival of Ponce de Leon and the blacks who accompanied him to the end of the Civil Rights period. So if any of you are interested in this, I can post it on the bulletin board out there. The date for our next meeting has been changed to September 30th. The reason for this is that the Seminole County Historical Society has gotten an excellent speaker, and that was the only night that she could come. So we didn't want to conflict, so we are going to change our meeting to the next night. I want to encourage you to go to this. We'll be at the Ag Center on September 23rd at 7:30, and the speaker is Betty Mae Jumper. She is a Seminole Indian. Her topic will be the legends of the Seminoles. She was the very first tribal woman of the Seminole Indians, Seminole Nation. She's been a nurse, an alligator wrestler, a tribal chairwoman, and has been honored by the state and national organizations. Her mother was a medicine woman, and Betty Mae used to go with her into the Everglades, where they delivered babies and healed with herbs and the like. Ms. Jumper passes Seminole legends from generation to generation. She'll be telling the group of many of these legends. So I encourage you to go to that. And our meeting will be on September the 30th. And this will be our birthday meeting. You know that Sanford's birthday is the city of Sanford on September 29th. And the city will be 122 years old. That was the date it was incorporated in 1877. So the program on the Naval Air Station is in your program book, has not materialized. So we will have some kind of a program on the Sanford history or something along that line. We haven't finalized that yet. Also, there may be some other interesting things that happen. We'll talk about these at the board meeting. And the social committee will be having special refreshments, probably a birthday cake or something like. So remember, that's September the 30th. I'd like to thank Barbara and Nell for the refreshments. They were a little bit different, and we certainly appreciate it. Paul for sitting at the greeters table, and the House Committee for setting up the room, and anybody else needs thanking? We appreciate everything that everyone does to help the society. These are the walking, driving tour booklets that were mentioned that we spent $1,500 on photographs for. They're on sale out here for $2.50. We tried our best to get some free ones. It didn't work. There's several homes in here that I know you will recognize. I was looking through this afternoon and just opening up in the middle here and see the old Zachary home on 818 Magnolia. And many of you know Margaret Zachary Wright, who's been here since she was a child. And this was her parents' home where she grew up. She happened to be down here yesterday with her daughter Joan, and in the conversation I just asked when she had, how long she lived in Sanford, and Joan was telling me, Ms. Wright's memory is not very good now, she's 96, and Ms. Wright was telling me, Joan was telling me that the Zacharys lived out at Markham when they first came here. This would be the early 1900s. And I believe it was Margaret's mother that came in with her on the horse and buggy during the week and stayed in an apartment so she could go to the Little Red Schoolhouse. And then they'd go back home on the weekend. And they had an apartment somewhere behind the church, Episcopal Church. So that's a little bit of history there. She and our mother are about the same age. But mother came here, I think grandma's got a wish she went to the school at school. So there are other homes in here. The hospital where I was born, and maybe probably some of the rest of it. 500 Oak Avenue is in here. A lot of the old homes, and it gives you some of the history of them. And the pictures are really nice. So they're on sale out here, $2.50.
When the trust introduced this book, they had I guess everybody that belonged to the society, to our society was invited, and it was really lovely.
It was.
Those of you that missed it, really,
It really was.
the refreshments were wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And they did give us a copy, too.
Yes, they did.
And the wine was even better.
We had a good representation there. Several of you were there, so it's good.
They did a nice job.
They did. They really did. Okay. Alicia asked me to announce that is this the?
That's it.
Oh, please adopt this card catalog. Okay? She wants to get rid of the card catalog. So if any of you have a use for this?
It's only here temporarily. It is facing the other way. It has, it must have 70 drawers in it. That's all little card catalog drawers, and it has pull-out shelves on it, so it's a self-contained unit. I mean, it's a card catalog, so it's, it's the 3x5 cards. We are holding it temporarily. We thought the Mount Dora Historical Society was coming to pick it up here, and they decided they didn't want it. So if anybody has a church or a school, private school, or some kind of organization, you don't even have to use it as a card catalog. It could be used for storing something else in. It's just looking for a home. The gentleman who owns it would just like to donate it, and we thought we had a home for it. It is extremely heavy, as Chip Chapman can attest to, because he tried to move it for me, and it's extremely, extremely heavy. So it does require a refrigerator dolly and a truck to get it out of here. But it can go to any nonprofit home. So please help me out, because I've got to move it out of here.
Okay. Are there any other announcements or business? Okay. So we'll call the meeting adjourned. And I'll introduce our speakers. I have known Imogene Yarborough since we entered Seminole High School together as freshmen in 1950. We graduated in 54 and recently had our 45-year reunion. I remember one summer when we were about 16, we served together as foremen or counselors at the NQ ranks in the girls' camp. I had a cabin of 10, 11-year-olds who was in charge of boats. I don't remember what Imogene was in charge of, but I'm sure it was much more important than boats. That's more of her line of interest than mine. I believe that she and Ed started going together when they were children. And they married soon after we graduated. Ed is a self-employed cattle rancher. Imogene says that she follows wherever's needed. Ed's active in the State Cattlemen's Association. Imogene is the past president of Florida Cowbells, which is a ladies' auxiliary. They're active in the church, First Methodist in Geneva, and several community activities. They have 4 grown children, and I believe I'm right on this, there may be a change. They have a teacher, a logger, and 2 ranchers. Ed's sister is Lorraine Whiting, who is one of our members, and she's past president of the Seminole County Historical Society. And Ed and Imogene are going to tell us now about the cattle industry in Seminole County.
Thank you, Grace Marie. I was in charge of horses. And I had 14 girls that knew more than me. Just ask them. Normally, Ed's our spokesperson. He has the first and the last word. Although I do get something in between every now and then. He's a very gracious gentleman. As Grace Marie said, we went together. For my high school, he had to kind of wait on me to grow up. And I'm still growing up. He's a senior citizen. He is. And I'm so close behind him, it's not funny. Dust, rain, and all the elements of Mother Nature governs our world tremendously. And when Grace Marie asked us to talk about the cattle industry, you can go so many different avenues. You can go historically, who did what, and there's been an awful lot of good things come out of the beef industry in the last 25 years especially. There's a lot more to raising a cow than just feeding it and getting it ready for your table in the form of a hamburger or steak. Up here on the table I have some little handouts that you can help yourself to. And one of them is, what's in a cow? When is a cow more than a cow? There is a difference, yes. But anyway, that's one of the things that the Woman's Auxiliary really pushes is the beef, the recipes, and that a cow is definitely your friend, because a lot of environmentalists think that the cow pollutes the waters and takes up land that it doesn't deserve and stuff like that. It's part of the cycle of life, the cow is. Back in 1995, my family had the opportunity to go on the Great Florida Cattle Drive, which was a wonderful opportunity for everyone that attended, which was taking 1,000 head steers from Yeehaw Junction, which is way down in the middle of Florida, to the Kissimmee Rodeo Arena. They had to go over 6 different people's lands driving those cattle, and Ed was one of the representatives that had that responsibility. And it was fortunate that our 2 sons got to go and son-in-law on horseback as what we all call
Go on.
cow hunters. Our girls, the two girls drove covered wagons. And they camped out. We did everything just about like the old timers did. And it was a wonderful experience. Now, whether you're a cowboy, a drugstore type, or a railman, or a cow hunter, or a cowman, there's different categories in our world too. And one of the gentlemen that started the cattle industry back in Seminole County, which was, of course, Orange County, back before 1877, was a gentleman by the name of Clarence Summerlin. He was possibly the son of Jacob Summerlin that came earlier on. And one of the things that we are told about Jacob Summerlin was that excuse me, when General Sanford had built himself a beautiful town on Lake Monroe, which is Sanford, he went down to Orlando, the county seat for Orange, to buy the courthouse. He had a meeting with the people offering to build a fine new courthouse in Sanford to help the county. Everyone was impressed until Jacob Summerlin, draped in his blanketed cowboy style, stood up and stated that if a new courthouse was needed, he would offer $10,000 to build it. The county could pay him back or not, as they liked. This according to the Steve Nelson History of Oviedo. Now that doesn't sound like a lot of money in today's world, but back then $10,000 made on cattle was a lot of money. We've got a lot of different names collected to write the history of the cattlemen's history in this county, and we've given it to the museum and to your historical group here. And we won't go into all those different names, but people back in those days was paid in gold for everything. And cows were on open range, and $10 and $12 in gold was paid for a fat steer. And what's the lowest you've ever seen steers go for? 8 cents a pound. How heavy were those steers? 1,000 pounds. About how old would they be?
4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years old. Think of that. All right. The St. Johns River in the Econ-Wahachie Creek is a wonderful place to raise cattle. It's not the ideal place in some areas for houses. And Ed's got an old saying that's been handed down to him that God put that here on earth just to hold the earth together. And that's why a cow can make their lives right there. So a cow is definitely your friend in many ways. I'd like to just tell one more little interesting fact. An interesting record on early cattle concerning in the Geneva area dated back to May of 1855, when David Higginbotham gave his infant daughter, Mercy Higginbotham, one colored slave girl, 5 years of age, named Elizabeth, and 14 heifer calves known as Patrick's heifers. Some of the Higginbothams were still in Geneva and later moved into Sanford. And J.W. Flint bought the land and the cattle from them. So there's names that are still in the Sanford area that were into the cattle business long years ago. And one of the mentions in here was of Mr. Spear. Algin Spear's grandfather was a witness to a sale of cattle. So I have this copy here, and if any of you are interested to go a little deeper into that, you're more than welcome to. But right now, I'm going to turn it over to Ed. He's going to talk a while, and then I'd like to come back and say just a word or two. This is my cowboy as a girl. In my time, growing up, you either dated a sailor at the base, which I didn't do, I found me a cowboy that wore denim and got mad as all get out whenever it started going up in price.
I accused the lady folks of the denim going up. You used to buy them Jeep, buy them Levi's, $8-10 a pair. When women started wearing, they had dresses out of denim, they just, you can't even buy one pair for less than $30 now. If you buy them that, okay. I think I should went first instead of following you. Anyway, I'm a third generation. I was born and raised up in Geneva. Also, I'm the third generation in the county commission, Seminole County, in my family. And then I'm going to get on a hat deal here. I'm going to go to the past, start with, then we're going to the future, okay, up here now. I know all of you remember Mr. Beck in town. And go down the aisles and buy the hat. His brim wasn't quite that wide. That hat was $12. Tell you what inflation does. I helped a boy out with a bunch of Cadillac 12 years ago. He said, I want to give you some money. I said, no. He said, will you take a hat? I said, yeah, I'll take a hat. This is a 10X Texan. $12 hat. Back there years ago, this hat cost $250. 12 years ago, and today it's about $500 a hat. So when you wear these Stetson hats, you spend some money. I want to know that too. I'll bet you guys tonight. Let's start off with Sally first. These are the spurs that every man uses on a horse. Not like these, I'm a little different. Most of the spurs you see will be that way. These are the spurs. We make them style. We make them style. We've had these all our life. I had a Ramlin Tech engineer who worked with Kirby, and he made the stainless steel spurs for me about 12, 15 years ago. So that's part of it.
That's just a tie.
That's your tire. You wear them all the time.
You hear the men walk through on the movies where they jingle. Ours don't jingle.
Okay. Another something you got to have is a cow whip. Because these cow whips, this cow whip is made out of buckskin, tan buckskin. Nowadays, you can't hardly find anybody to make one. Really, they're too lazy to do it, is the hope. It takes a lot of time, and you've got to put a lot of pressure on them, and they can make a nylon whip without any problem. Yes, they're 18. This is what one looked like when it's new. This has been greased, and I've had it, I don't know, for 10, 12 years. They last a long time to take care of.
How long does it take to make it?
Oh, they can make one today. Serious about it. Yeah, gotta have good hands grip. Okay.
Still popping? It's still cracking?
Oh, yeah.
Cracker.
Okay, now I'm gonna get on this one. I don't know, you might have saw the rake in the paper here a while back, where my boys running some horses for Osteen. This young lady came riding down the road, and she saw a dead coon in the road, so she dodged the dead coon, went off the road, and she come back in, she ran in the horse trailer. Both tires, axles out from under, that horse fell down, and tore this whip up pretty good. Anyway, didn't hurt anybody. The horse had to be sewed up a little bit. They were good. So I put in the insurance company on the cow. All I can find was a nylon. I don't want to put one on my saddle. Everybody else got them. So finally, the man in Michigan used to be down here, and I must have run him out of Florida or something. He could make a cow. This is 10 deer high. And I put in for the cow whip. So the other day he drove up in the yard and said, I got a whip here if you want one. I said, you don't want one. He said, it's buckskin. I said, okay. I furnished the buckskin for this. It cost me $6 a foot to get that whip made, and I furnished the buckskin. On that whip cost me $185. I said, you got to be in charge. I said, gold in it or what? He said, $185. I said, well, I'm going to take it anyway. Okay, that's the whip side of it. Okay. Here's your saddle pad, that goes on top of the horse. Saddle goes on top of that. I got two little small ropes, and you see a lot of boys riding these saddles. It's got lariats on them, like this rope cattle all the time. We don't rope cattle. We make them drive. We've got dogs that does this roping for them. They make the cattle stay the bunch. We don't never have to rope one at all. I think I roped one bull in the last 30 years, 35. And I just got a little perturbed one day. He went through the fence and went the wrong way. I said, I want him to go take him home. So we roped him. You won't believe what happened. We roped him, tied him up. Went back to get him, and he was so smart he untied the rope. So he was going across the grass that open improved, and we run on there and caught him. That's what I get for roping, I guess. You got your raincoat behind. This is what you carry your dinner in. And, of course, it's not that way now. Years ago, you packed your lunch early in the morning. You left about anywhere from 6 o'clock in the morning, 7, come in at 6, 7, 8, 9. Just weather, whatever come on, took the storm, cold, whatever. And lightning. We've had some pretty close calls with lightning. This man upstairs was looking out for us. We were driving down fence behind on that big bunch of cattle. Lightning struck a pine tree. The wire was tied on to, come rolling down there. Killed 3 cows right in front of me. I guess the cows took the leap. I didn't feel anything. My uncle fell a little bit, but I didn't feel anything. Okay. Cover that. As we county progresses, I guess they call it that. Man, it's unbelievable. I was in a meeting in Marco Island about a couple of weeks ago. You know, anytime there's going to be a board meeting with St. John's Water Management there, and I'm in a ball around there, I'm going to be there. And this lady got up and said, talking about the Sanford area and this and that, said, you're going to run out of water. If you're not careful, they're going to run out of water for these people on the I-4 corridor. That's from Sanford, you know, going toward Lake Mary, Longwood. So she kept talking. I asked her, I said, later on they didn't answer. I said, well, why don't you get that 3.5 million gallons of water running out of San Leandro Springs into the ocean every day? She said, well, the 350 million gallons run through Lake Monroe. So I think in years to come, you're going to see this Lake Monroe useless water going out through this way, in my opinion. That's what I get. But that water, that's the bad part of all this growth in this country now is water. Just ain't careful, they're going to run out. Okay. As we leave here, I don't know much about the cattle people that were west of here. As we leave here and go that way, I'm going to mention a few names, and it's going to be familiar to some of you, I know. Mr. Barney Back, they had cattle on St. John River. The White family, they were around Lake Jessup. The Camerons were very big in Seminole and Volusia. And if we cross the river from Volusia, the Pels were real strong over there at one time. Came on down towards Geneva, the Bats and the Feast and the Kilbys. That's my family. The Lee, C.S. Lee. The Ryder brothers were around Longwood, but they had land over in Lake County pretty well. It's amazing what these old people went through. You can't imagine. Because you can tell you the days he's great. You know, his open range, and my family was involved in it over there in Volusia. We went down on Lake County Road there. We had lots of cattle, what they call Farmington now. We always called it the Big Woods. And we go over there and camp occasionally. Like there on Maytown and Pinnachaw Road. I don't even know where it's at or not. And we had finally built a little 8 to 10 lean-to there to put our groceries and sleeping bags on it. And that's what we camped for a long time. It stayed for a week. You didn't have any coolers. You didn't have any lights. You didn't have any mosquito repellent. You slept under a mosquito bar at night. You better get in right quick when you started, because there's mosquitoes in that country then. And it's amazing what these people that I mentioned to you right here, they were tired. We had a fellow who used to work for us named Mazel Taylor. Everybody called him Uncle Moose. We had a pastor over there in Brevard County, and we went in there one afternoon late, and the mosquitoes wasn't bad. So we don't think we're going to need a mosquito bar. So we just laid down there on the ground, you know, just put a bed down there. And something woke them things up. One of them must have bit us and went back to the woods and said, "Boy, we got some fresh meat in there." They come back. It was, I couldn't sleep the rest of the night. And that morning, I looked at old Uncle Mose, we called him. He had that blanket over him, just snore away. So we got up and I said, "Uncle Mose, hi, where are you sleeping on that blanket?" He called me Scout. He said, "Scout, if you haven't got any screens in your house, or your doors," he said, "you get used to them mosquitoes. You sleep on that blanket. That's where you got to sleep." And that's the way a lot of people were. They didn't have, a lot of them didn't have any screens. They were just pure tough. Anyway, that pretty well takes the cattle people that I can have any business with. And I know those of you from Sanford, years ago, at about 10 o'clock, the Montezuma Hotel, Mr. Beck and Francis Rona and Mr. Rona and Mr. Billy Leffler and George Mackett. I can just keep on. They was going to go to that restaurant and have coffee every morning at 10 o'clock. Pretty well. Y'all remember that? I know you do. Okay. Well, in the past, you know, they used to have horse racing right here, right where this building standing years ago. They'd have a parade every holiday, 4th of July, Labor Day, any other day they could find an excuse to get here. They're going to get in and run their horses. Right here where they had it. Right down there. How times have changed. Okay, that was pure scrub cattle now. Those are the cattle that the Spaniards brought into this country back there in when it was, 1565 or a little after that or something. That's the cattle that I've been talking about. Okay. Then as time progressed on, we had to do something. Cattle were small, scrub cattle were very small. 600-700 pounds. Calves were just light. Well, to tell you the first outfit that went and got some Burma coolers was Joe Campbell, I believe, in this county. He brought it. Well, the truck, we were sitting on hauling that damn time. I believe it was. They hauled him in by a rig, train. Full semi-load. He's the man that started that. I believe for Burma. Anyway, and all of a sudden, everybody went into it. In later years, we bought Burma mixed with scrub cattle. It was a very good cross. And then the Burma were tough cattle. They can take that over wind and water, hot weather. No matter how hot it is, you can get one of them and drive them, But as time progressed, the people built up the herd, and they started mixing those English blood and Hereford and all this time. And then become improved pastures. We got a world of it. I inherited my land, nobody can't buy that land. So I inherited my land. Grandfather was E.H. Gilbert and my uncle Ed and Imogene. And I own about 8,000 acres. But it's not easy to own it. It's a job to keep it. But anyway, we keep owning cattle at the Brown Cross. Then the feedlot people say, well, we need something else. That's when we mix the Hereford and any kind of cross-bred cattle like that. Cattle years ago, raised 3 years, and take you 3 years to get a steer of 700 pounds or whatever it is. I'm selling kids right now, 4 months old, between 500 pounds, 4 months old now. That's the difference. The way things have changed in the cattle industry. We fight it, like my wife said, we fight every devil in the world there is. And you don't work out there, say you go to work 8 o'clock, you quit fighting, forget that. If you want to work about 70 to 80 hours a week, you don't want to be no farmer, no rancher. Just stay home. Maybe longer than that, you got to, well, that's the first thing you got to have a good wife. And I got that. Okay, that's getting, all right, now let's talk about St. John's River now. Let's start at Sanford, let's go this way. We're now home back. Here comes St. John's. These counties, they buying all this land up at St. John's. Bought all the back property, bought some of the county property on Lake Jessup, bought flight property. If you leave here and go right on down that way, I don't know. There might be one of those small herd down there also on the river. You come to me, I've got cattle on the river. Lee's got cattle on the river. And that's all the cattle I believe that's on St. John River, Seminole County. That's awesome. These states buy them, I don't know what they're going to do with those little land. And they purchased a parcel from me. They didn't purchase a parcel. They purchased a conservation easement from me on the lower end. I retained ownership in that land. I retained 20 years of grazing rights with the option to continue that grazing. I retained the hunting rights. I retained that for sure. But anyway, I didn't sell it to the conservation easement. I can't build on it. The wetlands are pretty low down. I don't think we could build on it anyway. But that's what we did to me. I think Inland's kind of rocking back a little bit now. They thought the cattle did all the damage to the river, but they're finding out the cattle didn't do all the damage to the river. That, you see all this cement put in, all these septic tanks. What had you running in these creeks? What had you? It had a lot to do with it. They need the cattle in these areas for the game. If you just let it go, they say, well, we're going to let it go back to nature. Well, they just talk, because they've done improved a lot of these lands. Done away with all the wiregrass, done away with all the cattle, done away with everything. The only thing going to come back in it is the briars, murder. Now, that's the biggest thing's coming back. But when you leave them cattle in there, they keep that little grass eat down, stomp down with them trails through there where the game can get around too. As it is, otherwise it can't. Anyway, it wasn't easy to sell my conservation easement to St. John, but we found it for me. It didn't take about 2 years and a half. Man, that's unbelievable. Okay, that's pretty well. Yeah, all my cattle started from my family cattle, Spain, we kept changing bulls, and improved pasture. I got world improved pasture for it. It's just a different game now. You got to. It's hard for an agricultural man to stay. It's just hard. You got to diversify. Stay. If that hat went up that much, what do you think a tractor would?
Out of sight.
Out of sight. The little tractor, it's a 54-horse tractor, it costs you between $26,000 and $30,000. You get 100 horse and then going up, it's just unbelievable. Everything we touch is just, in place is just eating alive now. We diversified, we sell a little sod, and we sell a little hay, and hunting rights, we sell hunting rights. You pay taxes. But tell you what the state can do. They can raise the hogs. They border me on 3 sides. We don't want them hogs on our place. A lot of places we just destroy everything. You know, if we do. I guess them boys and all of us in the last 2 years have caught or killed about 225 head of hogs coming out of that state land. But now he ain't done. He was to start with. But what now? He comes over there and feeds at night, and by daylight he goes back on that fence. That's just true. That's about them cattle business. Cattle bringing money right now for the last 4 or 5 years. It's cost the last several years up to this year. It's cost us more to raise a calf than getting out. That's hard to go. Any of you got any questions you'd like to ask?
I would. Been on your property many times on the econ, all the way down to your camp and boat. And on the south side, maybe you could give us some history. There are some wild orange trees, St. Augustine grass, and iris, that evidently someone lived there at one time. Do you know who that was? You know where I'm talking about?
Yes, ma'am. I know everything.
Those orange trees are
Okay.
still sweet.
I was told by the fellow I just told, Mose Taylor, that St. Augustine grass was brought into that country by his great-granddaddy way back yonder from St. Augustine. And just cows keep scattering and scattering. Okay, now the orange trees. I imagine, back to years ago, you know, our folks had hogs years ago. Everybody had hogs, but cows wasn't any good. They were 6 and 8 cents a pound. Hogs was 20 cents a pound. So they made a living on hogs, and they had no cows out there. Them hogs used to go to them groves and Chilioda, be down there and go to Chilioda, and they, on the other side of the trees the same way, they go to Geneva area. They eat them oranges at night and come back down and then lay up in the daytime. Okay, now, on one of those curves down there, there's nothing there standing now before my time. Somebody went out there, put up a 2-story house named the Argos. And they go down and live on the weekends. And don't ask me how it happened. They tell me they drilled a well and got fresh water down there, and nobody's ever got any since. The house is not standing. I can take and show you right now where the well is rotted off down there in the ground, and it'll flow. When the water table gets up, it'll make a little stream and go into the econ. But that's the way those oranges got there. More like it than and people camping them all up. You know, that was them catfishing years ago, had to make a living. And they come to the camp years ago, and a steamboat used to run up that creek there. Them catfishing, there's a place up there called Skinny Bench. That's where they all camp. Had a big bench there and they skin catfish. And a steamboat come out here, driving up there, and run up that econ, and they sold them fish, that steamboat, he come back out. I can show you the land today. Well,
That's all right.
used to be a man in Geneva. He had two young girls. He lived in Geneva. And they went to school. But when school got out, he didn't want them young boys around the house. So he'd take his girls and the family, and he'd go down there to one of them bends on that creek, and he'd stay down there the rest of the summer. But when school opened back up, he'd come back and live in a house in Geneva.
That's how some of the trees got close to the river too, because he planted the trees.
I can imagine. the catfish people could have hauled a few oranges in there, and the hogs on the north side of the creek. There's a black fellow used to live there on the Old Men's Road named Claude Rollison, and he had bittersweets. It was bloodstock. And I can take you today, you should have got 150 of those oranges down there in that swamp 4 miles from that house. That's the way they got it. The hogs come up and raise them oranges at night, went back. That's the way they got it.
Why does the state or county or whoever, why are they raising hogs?
Well, they won't do anything. They do nothing. They piece of land they got. They don't do anything with it. Except that people ride a bicycle down through there, or make a trail for a horse, and the hogs have been there.
Oh, the hogs just came.
The hogs,
They're wild.
they're wild, nobody in there. Do anything with them, and they just raise wild. Okay, we used to sell all our cattle at the Kissimmee Livestock Market. And since Disney World come in that country, well, that land got so valuable that a lot of them ranches just sold out, which you can't blame. And they closed Kissimmee Livestock Market. That was about an hour and 10 minutes for hour was to haul down. Now then we got to haul our cattle all the way to Lake and sell them, which is about an hour and 45 minutes. So we went there. And besides, $22 worth of toll fees. Yes, ma'am.
There's a small herd out on Indian Mound on the river that someone's keeping, and they swim them across the river and take them to an island. They're stone on. You know who owns those?
I do, and I can't remember his name right now.
They're fat and happy.
They're across the river in Volusia County on that island. I think Francis Merriweather used to own that island.
I think still.
Yeah. I know when the water got so high.
Well, they swim them across unless the water's high, and they take them across on a barge.
And they,
It's kind of interesting to watch.
They know what it is.
They know what they're doing.
When Albert Clark, I know y'all folks, played Albert Clark, he had cattle there years ago. And he had no boat.
Called it the Mayflower.
He called it the Mayflower. He get the old cows and put them on that boat. But he first loaded, he loaded too many. And y'all got on one side. What happened?
I've seen some of that.
Did you see that? So after then, I think you put just 3 or 4 or 5 in there and put some in on each side to kind of keep the cattle in the middle of the boat.
One day, this young man came out there and he loaded this canoe. I don't know if you've ever had anything much to do with a canoe, but you can't stand up and drive. And you can't overload it because it'll just sink. And he just kept putting the hay. I was standing there watching him. I thought, this is going to be something. And when he got in it, it just picked up the paddle, and when he picked up the paddle, it just went underneath the water. And the hay floated off down the river.
That's my love with canoe too. Keep driving. Cattle industry in Seminole County, not many cattle left. I've got a big herd. I guess it leaves, and I've probably got approximately 2,000 get maybe. Otherwise, it's just small herd. There's a bunch around Osceola with it. Elmer, you know where Osceola is?
I know where Bridget is.
You know where Bridget is? You know where it is?
That's where I used to live.
He used to live down there, Johnson did. The Reese has got a small herd down there. There's only 2 big ranches left on the Seminole County. I know it. Anybody got more questions? Yes, sir.
Just for information, two really good novels on cattle ranches and gardens.
That's a good one.
That is supposed to be a fictional book, but it's written on fact. Because we know Mr. Smith and discussed it. But you can just look at almost such a good writer.
Years ago, there wasn't nothing in here but pine methods with Hogs country. Everything was pine methods and pine. And Ralph, you're right. I can tell you about them too. I got a boy. He said, "Daddy, you living on borrowed time." I said, why is that, Dad? He said, well, lightning and rattlesnakes ought to kill you years ago.
Mr. Yarborough, tell us what your grandfather paid for an acre of ranch land and what it's worth today.
Okay. I saw a deed the other day.
Is it as bad as your Stetson?
I saw a deed the other day on Stetson land they bought for $640. That's $1 acre. I got a piece of land. A fellow used to own it by the name of Max Leinhart. Max Leinhart sold it to C.S. Lee. I thought I was down. Max, Mr. Lee said, I'll give you $1 acre for it. He said, that's doubling my money. I'll sell it to you. So he sold it to Mr. Lee for $1 acre. Okay. Then here we come along. We had a parcel over there in Brevard County. We wanted that land. So we bought it, and we paid $35 an acre for it. But today, it's pretty high. I don't want to get much into St. John, but they bought the land across from me for $4,800 an acre in Snowgill River. So they come on to me, I said, I want you to give me 3 appraisals. I said, okay. I said, I want good high land like this on this side, appraised separate from the whole ranch. The other portion down the river and the other portion south. They come back, they offer me $3,090 an acre on my side of the road. But on this side of the road, they gave $4,800 an acre. I asked him, I said, you think I'm dumb enough to hit the middle of the pitchfork? We've had some battles with them. Yes, sir. But that pasture land's worth, it's worth $3,000 to $4,000 according to the location.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
How many acres does it take to sustain one head of cattle?
Right now. Well, in the summertime, you get a good grass. You can average about a cow 5 acres. 3, 4, 5 acres. I count on my parcel. It's improved and fertilized, and we lime every 4 years and fertilize pretty regularly.
Whether it needs it or not.
Anybody got any other questions?
What we didn't say to begin with was that we live out in Geneva, and we live on a ranch that we consider a cow-calf operation. That means you take the cow, raise the calf till they're 350, 75, 400, 425 pounds. You take that calf to market. Because of the humidity and everything in Florida, we can't keep feed to sustain feedlots like they do out west. So these calves are put on the market, purchased, put on semis, and driven out west. Go out there and eat that good Iowa corn and come back here as Iowa beef with you. Starting. Because it's amazing the cows that we have here in Florida. We'll come back and do another deal with that. But this is a family operation. 2 girls worked it whenever they were at home and in school. 2 boys did also, and they're still helping. And one of my middle names is Gopher. I'll let you figure that one out. But it's a pleasure. It's been a wonderful helping life, and I've enjoyed it. In our Cattlemen's Association in Florida, they have an award or a nomination that's called Honorary Director. And when a gentleman reaches 65, his county can submit his name, and they are given a plaque. Well, as I told you, Edward is a senior citizen, so he became eligible for that. And I'd like to take just a minute and show you the plaque that he received from the Cattlemen's Association, and he is so proud of it, and we're proud for him also. There's a lot of hard work goes into something like this, and it's a lifetime, is what it is. but I'd like to read you the resume that our daughter wrote concerning Ed. Ed was born into an agricultural cattle family as a third-generation native. He started learning the cattle industry from the saddle of his uncle, W.G. Kirby, at the age of 4. This was the day of open range and no daycare facilities. His earliest experiences are of mosquitoes, saw palmettos, rattlesnakes, whips, muck, mud, high water and low water, camping under the stars until the labor of marking and branding cattle was done. Natural hazards of work with which his generation is familiar. Ed was present during the final years of the compulsory dipping for the Texas fever tick and the beginning of the Mexican screw fly that came in 1935. That same year, his family chose to erect fences around large tracts of their land. This was done well before the law was imposed and allowed for their cattle to use the first permanent pastures in the area. When the pests were gone, more pastures were planted and with improved grasses at this time. The first attempts at improving the quality of the scrub cattle were started then too, with the introduction of the Brahma bulls into the herds. Ed has continued the family tradition of improving pastures, grasses, and herd quality. He has kept his children involved in the daily operation of the 8,000-acre ranch. He's taught them to work cattle since they were 5 or 6 years of age. They have made good hands and allowed the ranch to operate with only one outside employee. The challenge remains constant to have the best possible cow-calf operation on the Econ-Wauhatchie Creek and the St. Johns River. A balance must be held between the natural environment and the usage and benefits that the cattle derive. Maintaining 1,000 head of brood cows in this area that God made to keep the world together is an ongoing task. Adjustments are needed as the weather indicates. For example, when the groves were lost in the early 1983, 85 and 83 freezes, Ed found that the high dry sand ridges made excellent coastal bahia fields. This high quality hay continues to supplement the herd in the winter along with the planted rye fields that he makes. Ed supported Farm City tours and opened his ranch to such on many occasions. The people from Alaska came the farthest, and the most famous was Hubert H. Humphrey when he was campaigning for the office of President of the United States. Edward was one of the first to support the beef checkoff. The beef checkoff is every time you sell an animal, $1 for that animal goes to what's called the beef checkoff, which goes into promoting beef and finding out what some of the things that we get, the medical things that we get from the beef, and all of that is supported with that $1. And he continues this support. Ed and his entire family participated in the Great Florida Cattle Drive of '95, an event which allowed for many cattlemen to meet each other and be together. Fathers and sons, friends and neighbors, everyone with a common purpose, were experiencing what only a few could actually remember. His sons and a son-in-law, as I said, rode as cow hunters with him. His daughters drove teams of draft horses and wagons carrying other family members. Our youngest grandson was actually the youngest one on there because his mother was pregnant with him and rode on the wagon with her doctor's permission. Ed has held office in the Seminole County Cattlemen's Association almost every year since its inception in 1951. He's a member of the State and National Cattlemen's Association. He served on the numerous state and local agricultural advisory boards throughout the years. He served as director on the County Board of Farm Bureau and a member of ASCS for many years. He held the office of county commissioner for 8 years and remains as director of the Citizens Bank of Oviedo for the 27th year. He's a member of the First United Methodist Church of Geneva. A source of pride to a cowman is his horse, his dogs, his hat, his truck. Ed has raised a herd of wild horses on the river these many years and gets a horse broke as needed. His cow dogs are raised and trained close to home with an occasional injection of outside blood. The grandchildren can play with almost anything but his hat. And his pickup truck tag reads, Cowman. Needless to say, I'm proud of him too. For this time, it might not mean much to y'all, but it did mean an awful lot for the company to come to the city.
Grace Marie, I think mention should be made that Ed and Imogene have hosted our Seminole High School class, and I think others, and given us a great time.
They got the barn cemented now. You don't have to walk in the dirt.
Thank y'all so much. We now know more about the cattle industry and so forth. We appreciate it. It's just a small token of our appreciation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, if there's nothing else, meeting adjourned, then maybe, yes?
I have a question, one more question
Oh,
for
okay.
Ed. Florida used to be number 2 in breeding and raising of cattle. What ranking do they have now?
I think we're third.
Third? So Texas was first, Florida was second.
I think we're third now.
But Ed, east of the Mississippi, we've been first for years.
Number 1 East Mississippi.
Most people don't believe that, but that's true.
You go down there, I call it the promised land. You go down there, go on down there, they got cattle down there, man, Okeechobee, Hardy County, miles. A lot of cattle in that country. You go down Highway 60 down there for those cattle. Is where we went. Most people call it Yeehaw Junction, but it used to be called Jackass Junction. You know that? It was named Jackass Junction. And when the turnpike come in, they wouldn't call it that. So they named it Yeehaw Junction.
Anything else? Okay, it's good to see everyone here and stay around and visit for a while and maybe some more refreshments or something to pick up here. Go on.